All right. Hey, everyone. It's Max Notice, the host of Recruitment DNA. For those of you who are new to the show, Recruitment DNA is a podcast hosted by Wade and Wendy, where we discuss the ever evolving recruiting landscape. My guest this week is Brian Convery, who specializes in early talent acquisition for the Royal Bank of Canada. So, Brian, first off, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Thank you, Max, for having me. I'm excited to be here live from Toronto, Ontario. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually a New Yorker. I was born and raised in New York and upstate, up in the Hudson River Valley area, but spent a lot of time in my early career in Manhattan. So this is extra special for me because I just love the feel and the vibe of New York. And so just to have this opportunity to talk to you and Max is awesome. So my role is I am the director, national director of early talent acquisition, which I kind of say is just a fancy name for campus recruitment. My responsibility is broad in across the entire bank. So I'm in charge of all roles, all student roles. We hire students from first year, second, third, fourth, graduate students, as well as our leadership programs and all areas of the bank. So I myself didn't have a finance background. I was recruited to come here and lead this awesome team, and but I do get involved in everything from commercial banking, finance, capital markets, HR, you name it, across the bank. We're about 80,000 people worldwide. Majority of us are 60,000 or so in Canada. We don't have any branches or anything in the US, so you won't see us down there. That's not part of our model, but we pretty much, have a pretty good presence on Wall Street, so it's great to be here, and really excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. Then, first off, excellent introduction. Second, I got a question for you. So, you're a New Yorker, you're in Canada, and you specialize in early career development. How did you get to RBC? How did you end up in Toronto? And how did your specialty end up being early career development?
It's a great question, Max. I never dreamed I'd be in HR. I never really thought that would be my career path. I often talk about taking an off-roading a path like to your career, and I've really done that. I've really gone off-roading quite a bit through my whole career. I early started out in consumer products background in New York, gravitated to technology and got into consulting, which just opened many doors. I ended up getting into human capital management while in consulting, which is where I really got the bug and the flavor for the people and really being, I think it was always at my core, but it was really about how do you impact people? How do you actually be part of their career journeys? And so for the past almost 8, 9, 10 years, I've been in talent. It's been a great opportunity for me. I prefer early talent over everything because youth are eager and they're ready to get started. And I think there's so many things that I've done in my career where my degree wasn't a linear path to where I landed. And I always encourage students to think that way. I kind of did it in an era where, you did stay on your linear path, but I never took no for an answer and I always would jump over. So I've done marketing, HR, sales leadership training, a ton of project management globally, a ton of different roles. I've been a warehouse supervisor. I've been a buyer. I've been everything you can imagine throughout my career, and really got the opportunity to come to Canada. And I moved here originally with IBM at the time, and then I was here, and RBC ended up coming over and knocking and wanted me to come and take a look at this role, and I never looked back.
That's awesome. So, with that, your specialty lies again in that early career. So, in the midst of everything happening, what do you see happening to the current class of potential candidates? How is their early career strategy changing?
It's a great question. I feel very much for this class. I think when you look at the generation that's either a student or about to graduate, they've grown up with things like 9/11, unfortunately, school shootings, a lot of really things that weren't part of my childhood or my early career. So they've built a level of resiliency. They've built a level of change. They're open to change. I mean, you all as students know this, youth knows this, but I think for them, it's how do you take those skills that you've gained through this environment and through the different experiences you've had and apply those human skills to getting ahead. often we rely on, and we've always thought about the resumes and the degrees, and all that is important. But really getting to know the candidate and really getting to know the person behind that resume is my style. And I see a lot more now in, especially in this. I was on a panel earlier today where they called it the now normal. I thought that was really interesting because we always say the new normal, it's the now, because today is the now normal. Tomorrow might be another now normal, and having that ability to adjust and adapt is something that we all need to do, and I think especially for this generation. So I think be okay to put yourself out there, be okay to be yourself, share your uniqueness and things. You just got to go about it in a different way. There's not going to be those necessarily right now, those in-person coffee chats or those meetups, but there is opportunity, a lot of opportunities out there now that I'm seeing things being launched virtually that never were done before. So take advantage of developing your own social personality through social media, and then also take that and then just go with it. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Well, you've got a lot of experience working with these kind of people. So you were actually mentioning this before, how your team just brought on a record-breaking class entirely virtually and onboarded them. So
Yes.
how's RBC and how are you seeing organizations addressing these challenges from their side?
Yes, it was, as I shared, it was pretty phenomenal. We kept to our commitment. We hired over 1,000 students in Canada across the country. We will be hiring, including the US and the UK, close to 1,400 students this summer. US and UK come up in June. So in June, they'll be onboarding their students. It was two things. We learned a lot. And I've also heard this phrase used, we unlearned. And what do I mean we unlearned? We unlearned, and I unlearned how to deal more with remote candidates and remote opportunities. So when we had our onboarding welcome day this week, we had over 850 students joining us for 3 hours of programming. We had a bit of fun, we shared information, we got them up and running on our RBC Cafe powered by 10,000 Coffees, which is our networking platform. By the end of the 3 hours, 450 students already claimed their invite and signed up. It's all about interaction and engaging in a new way. And I'm very much of that mindset. I think being a consultant for so many years, I've embraced the let's not look at it the way we've always done. So that mindset is sort of in my character, but it's helping others and getting along with trying to figure out how do you execute on something like that. I'll say 4 months ago, I was a bit nervous, and I actually was had quite a bit of anxiety about the idea of onboarding 1,000 students. But after yesterday and seeing the results and what we've delivered, and even the fact that we actually shipped devices out to 1,000 students and they're up and running, it's just being creative, and it's being agile and being able to kind of move in these environments. Small, medium, or large. I work for a large organization, so I have a lot of support, which I'm super thankful for. If I didn't have that, I don't know if it would be that easy. But even for smaller companies, thinking about how you engage with those students and how you get them going. But it's unlearning what you did and just learning to do it in a different way.
So what were some of your biggest takeaways from that? I mean, onboarding 1,000 people, I imagine there were a lot of lessons learned, things you wished you knew, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we're still in the reflecting stage, to be honest, because we brought them on May 4th, which was a week ago, and we had our welcome day on Wednesday. So first week was just getting them situated. I'll be very transparent. I think and I think people need to realize this. We were, not me specifically, but we were really much amping up and ramping up around the technology being ready day one. And I hosted a couple manager calls, and I said, look, they're not going to be productive and fast on day one. They need to have the human element of you connecting, introducing them to the team, finding out how they're doing, checking in on their mental well-being, all the things that one would expect on day one. It's not about jumping on your laptop or your iPad or your computer and starting to, do work. It was about ramping up slowly and recognizing this is a time like none other. There's so much going on for all of us individually. And just even the anxiety and the anticipation of starting a new job with a company, just getting to know the team and getting to know their managers was first and foremost. So I think the learning was, don't forget, like, the human piece first, the speed and the productivity will come.
Wow. That it's such an important thing to keep in mind. Otherwise, you're just looking at your metrics, and then
Absolutely.
you're not bringing on people with the right culture. There's going to be a division between generations within the company.
100%.
That's an excellent point. So, that actually brings me to my next question, which is about career development and upskilling. So, how do early candidates navigate their careers these days, and what role does TA have in helping them?
I think it is the greatest time to be in talent acquisition. I tell people all the time I have the best job, and I don't even think of it as a job, it's a lifestyle for me. I am so inspired by the youth, and I'm so inspired by what I learn. And by having a listening strategy has enabled me to actually pivot and move and change our approach just based on what students tell me. So I think talent's responsibility is much more than just recruiting. I think it's also about the programming. It's about that end-to-end candidate, or in my case, student experience, from posting all the way through onboarding, meaningful work, and then either offboarding or converting, in our cases, to full-time roles. So I think talent acquisition, in my opinion, is the best role out there for someone to have. Every day is different. The impact you have, the people you meet, the networks that you build. The amount of people I've met, incredible in this role. And being a thought leader, I've been invited to so many different chats and talks, and it's just so natural, and I love it, right? So it's awesome. But so I think talent really has that role, and I think sometimes when people think of HR and they think of payroll and benefits and all the other aspects of HR that's important, in my humble opinion, this is the role that matters most, because we're actually engaging with our future employees.
That's the huge point right there. So I'm just going to ask you another follow-up question.
Sure.
What advice do you have for the new employees now that they've been onboarded? What advice do you have to make sure that they're really sticking their feet down, getting their roots down in the right place where, while not being in the office, it may be hard to kind of follow the current of that?
Yeah. I think it's about being comfortable with the uncomfortable and trying to figure out how you navigate that office space virtually. I equated it the other day to a water cooler, which, some generations are, what's a water cooler? But, the idea that you'd meet up at a water cooler, or you'd pass by at the cafeteria, or you'd in the hallway run into people. So those organic collisions that you would have aren't happening, right? We're not in the office. We're not running into each other in the street. I'm not seeing students, ask me to go grab a coffee if I had 5 minutes. So really, I think what people have to do is they have to take control of their own destiny and really start to think about strategically how are they going to plot out those relationships, how they're going to build their network. Networking, I always talk about as a skill, and the way people approach networking sometimes is a bit different. And I more approach it from the idea of building a knowledge network. A knowledge network is something like you or I have, where you have various people that you go to for certain things. It's not just randomly networking with everyone and then hoping you guys connect. So I think in this case, back at the office, start to look at different people, either in a role that you're interested in, maybe someone from your school, an alumni, maybe that student who's done that, school to work transition, and they can actually impart to you some really, really good information about how to navigate the organization. So I just think it's just taking a pause, and then kind of figuring out how you build that knowledge network. How do you approach people? Is the culture a coffee culture? Is it an instant messaging culture where you can just instant message people? Is it more of an email? You have to feel out and find out from others what's the culture of the organization so that you can navigate it from a virtual perspective.
I think we're going to learn a lot from this generation.
100%.
I think people who've been in the workforce should look at this generation, kind of even study the new habits and patterns that are coming out of this, because I think that's what's going to drive in the future. This is the point.
I can't agree with you more. Even when we did the virtual welcome day, I had concerns that how are we going to keep people engaged and interactive? Because really, we do these things in hotels typically. There was more interaction in the virtual than I saw in the last one we did in person, because we had a chat going, we had things happening, we were on our phones gaming, we were doing all these different things. And I think this generation, and I'm not part of it, so I don't want to speak for them, but things I read, or information I hear from the students, they're comfortable with that. Who's, be honest, who's comfortable standing up in a room of 850 people and asking a question? Probably not many of us, but to ask it in a chat box online, different scenario, right? So I think we can learn from them. And I have learned already. Like, I know what we're going to do when we hit campus is have that interaction for our next round of students, and be open to even, people on the business side, opening up those chat boxes and, like, be comfortable with that.
Yeah, you definitely have to be more comfortable with all of that kind of stuff now. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you're not there. So
That's right.
that actually brings me to the last question that I have written down for us today. But it
Okay.
pivots kind of perfectly. So, what role do you see technology playing in early career recruitment? Are new to workforce candidates more receptive to tech first solutions?
Yeah, great question. From what we see, the answer is yes. I mean, this generation definitely has grown up on technology, for sure. I think sometimes we over rotate on that concept, and sometimes we think if they're good at tech, everyone's good at tech, and everyone wants to work on tech. That's something I find out in my listening strategy, that not all students, they'll use it just like we will, but they don't necessarily see themselves as a tech, connoisseur of sorts. So, but I do see tech playing a huge part in talent. We just had a meeting this morning talking about our Explore BC going virtual this year on fall campuses, and even now for fall jobs, we're not going to campus. So how are we going to engage? So that's going to be through digital platforms. So whether it's Zoom or what various video conferencing, a lot of these tools now have breakout rooms, and you can have different areas. So you can talk about specific areas of, in my case, the bank. So I feel really good about it. I think there's a lot of opportunity with technology, to help talent, and also to help the students to showcase who they are. And it's just about figuring out how those two meet. And that's what we'll be focusing on over the next few weeks as we get ready for fall 2020.
Man, best of luck there. That's a
Yeah.
big first.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Brian, actually, before I let you go, I got one more question. You're
Sure.
saying how you're in Toronto, you miss New York. We got to get together when you come to New York. What
Absolutely.
what restaurant or bar are you going to first?
It's been a long time, and this is the tough thing. I don't know who's surviving through this and coping through COVID-19, right? I did have some favorites I would go to way back when, and I don't know. I'm open to something new too. I've been, that's the beauty of New York. There's always something to do, and there's always great places to explore. So I think with my travel mindset and also liking to try new things, I'd be open to pretty much anything just to get to see New York and to meet you in person.
So I've got a plan for us. So now, because you can't go to the restaurants or bars, they're all selling drinks to go outside. We're gonna meet up and have like a nice walk and drink and just go wherever the hell we want.
That sounds great. Let's do it.
I can't wait. All right, Brian, thank you so much again for stopping by today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone for tuning in.
All right, and enjoy your long weekend.
I will. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye for now.